Snowflakes drifted under the streetlights of Boston's financial district. The city slept beneath a blanket of white Christmas Eve silence, broken only by the low purr of a black Range Rover idling at the curb. Inside, Jack Foster tightened his grip on the steering wheel, his weathered face illuminated by the dashboard glow. 54 years of life had etched lines around his eyes, deepened now by exhaustion and something else. Emptiness. "Daddy, can we please turn on the Christmas music again?" Sophie's small voice came from the back seat where she sat clutching a teddy bear wearing a Santa hat, 6 years old with her mother's golden hair and his stubborn chin. "Sure, princess." Jack pressed a button, and soft holiday melodies filled the silence between them. The Foster Development Tower stood tall behind them, its windows dark except for the executive floor where Jack had spent the last 14 hours closing the Henderson deal. $300 million. Another victory for the shareholders. Another Christmas Eve working instead of wrapping presents. Sophie pressed her face against the window, watching the snow transform the city. "It's so pretty, like magic." "It sure is." Jack checked his watch. 11:42. Diana would be furious. He was supposed to drop Sophie off by 9, but the negotiations had run late. Another strike against him in their ongoing war. They drove past neighborhoods adorned with Christmas lights. Families visible through windows gathered around trees. Together. Complete. Sophie sighed. "I wish Mom was still here with us." The words pierced Jack's chest. Not "I wish Mom was here," but still here with us. As if they had once been a proper family. Maybe they had been before the company took priority, before the arguments, before the divorce 3 years ago. "Your mom is waiting for you at her house," Jack said, forcing brightness into his voice. "She probably has hot chocolate ready." "Not the same," Sophie whispered so quietly he almost missed it. Jack's mind drifted to the court hearing last month. Diana's voice crisp and professional as always, laying out his parental failures to the judge. Missed school plays, forgotten doctor appointments. The weekends when urgent business calls interrupted their time together. Diana was a formidable opponent in the courtroom, just as she had been as his wife. The weather alert interrupted his thoughts, blaring from the radio. Severe blizzard warning in effect until tomorrow morning. Wind chills reaching -20 degrees. Citizens advised to stay indoors. This is the worst December storm Boston has seen in 30 years. Jack turned onto Commonwealth Avenue. The grand old mansion stood sentinel in the thickening snow. 3 more miles to Diana's Beacon Hill townhouse, and then he'd return to his empty penthouse. Christmas morning alone with conference calls scheduled for noon. "Daddy, slow down." Sophie suddenly called out, pressing her palms against the window. "Stop the car." Jack hit the brakes, the Range Rover sliding slightly on the slick road. "What is it?" "There," Sophie pointed toward Franklin Park. "Someone's on the bench with a baby." Jack squinted through the swirling snow. At first he saw nothing. Then beneath the yellow glow of a park lamp, a huddled figure materialized. A woman bent over something, cradled in her arms. "Daddy, they'll freeze out there." Sophie's voice trembled with urgency. "The baby will die." "Sophie, we don't know these people. It's not safe to." "But it's Christmas Eve." Sophie's eyes filled with tears. "Remember my Sunday school story? Mary and Joseph had no place to stay, and baby Jesus was born in a stable because no one would help them." Jack hesitated. The rational part of his brain, the part that had built a real estate empire, calculated the risks. Stranger danger, liability issues, possible scams. But Sophie's face reflected a conviction he hadn't felt in years. "I'll check, but you stay in the car with the doors locked," Jack said, reaching for his coat. The wind hit him like a physical blow as he stepped outside. Snow whipped against his face, instantly coating his eyelashes and hair. 20 yards ahead, the woman hadn't moved. Jack approached cautiously, his Italian leather shoes disappearing in the deepening snow. "Ma'am," he called out when he was 10 feet away. "Are you all right?" The woman raised her head slowly. Young, maybe late 20s, with dark hair matted by snow. Her lips were blue, her face frighteningly pale. But it was her eyes that stopped Jack, cold, vacant, unfocused, the gaze of someone retreating from consciousness. "Help," she whispered so softly he had to lean closer. "Please help my baby." In her arms lay a tiny bundle, unnaturally still. Jack's heart hammered in his chest as he gently pulled back the thin blanket. A baby boy no more than 3 months old, his skin bluish and cold to the touch. The infant's chest moved with shallow, irregular breaths. Jesus Christ, Jack muttered. He touched the baby's cheek, ice cold. How long have you been out here? Hours, the woman murmured. Shelter's full. No one would take us. Without hesitation, Jack scooped up mother and child together. She weighed almost nothing, collapsing against his chest like a broken doll. The baby made no sound. Sophie had unlocked the door, her face pressed anxiously against the window. Are they okay, Daddy? No, they're not. Jack carefully placed the woman and baby in the back seat. We need to get them warm right away. Sophie immediately took off her coat and laid it over the baby. He's so cold, Daddy, like touching ice. The woman's eyes fluttered. Hospital, she managed to say. Baby needs. We're going now. Jack turned the heat to maximum and pulled out his phone, dialing 911. No answer. Lines overwhelmed by emergency calls in the blizzard. He tried again this time, calling his personal physician. Dr. Martin answered on the fourth ring, voice groggy with sleep. Jack, it's midnight on Christmas Eve. Emergency, young woman and infant suffering from hypothermia. Severe. The baby's barely breathing. Dr. Martin's tone changed instantly. Get them to Boston General. I'll call ahead. Can't. Roads are almost impassable now, and we're 20 minutes away in good weather. How cold is the baby? Jack touched the infant's skin again. Ice cold. Breathing is shallow and irregular. Listen carefully, Dr. Martin said. This is life or death. You need to warm that baby gradually. Direct skin contact is best. Have the mother hold him against her chest if she's conscious enough. She's barely conscious herself. Then you or someone else needs to do it. Remove the wet clothes first, then place the baby directly against warm skin, cover both with blankets. Sophie was already helping the young woman with the baby's wet clothes. I saw this in a movie once, she said with surprising calm, about penguins. Jack put the phone on speaker and placed it on the dashboard. What else, doctor? Monitor breathing. If it stops, you'll need to do infant CPR. Do you know how? No, Jack admitted, a cold fear gripping him. I'll talk you through it if needed. How far are you from your home? Maybe 10 minutes in this weather. Go there. It's closer than the hospital. I'll meet you. Keep me on the line. Sophie had helped the woman remove the baby's wet clothes. Now the young mother was trying to hold her child close, but her arms kept slipping, her own body too cold to provide the heat needed. She can't do it. Daddy, Sophie said, she's too cold herself. Without hesitation, Jack pulled over, turned around and unbuttoned his shirt. Give him to me. The tiny body felt frighteningly cold against his chest. Jack cradled the infant carefully, then wrapped his coat around them both. The baby's skin was almost translucent, blue veins visible beneath the surface. I've got him, Jack told Dr. Martin. What's the next step? Keep him against your skin. Drive carefully to your place. I'm leaving now. Sophie helped the young woman lean back against the seat. What's your name? She asked. Rachel, came the faint reply. Rachel Miller. And the baby, Ethan. A tear slid down Rachel's cheek. His name is Ethan. Jack drove with one hand, the other holding the infant firmly against his chest. Every small bump in the road felt like a mountain. The baby made no sound, but Jack could feel the faint flutter of heartbeat against his skin. Stay with me, Ethan, he whispered. You hang on, little guy. The Range Rover skidded on a patch of ice, nearly hitting a parked car. Jack regained control, his heart pounding. He couldn't remember the last time he'd felt this kind of fear, raw, primal. The fear of holding a life so fragile it could slip away between breaths. Daddy, she's not looking good, Sophie said, her voice tight with worry. She had taken off her sweater and placed it over Rachel. Rachel's eyes had closed, her breathing shallow. Rachel, Jack called out, stay awake, talk to us about Ethan. Her eyelids fluttered. Beautiful boy, she murmured. My beautiful boy. That's right, he needs you to stay awake. Tell us about him. 3 months old, she whispered. Born on September 15th, 7 pounds 6 ounces. Jack felt a slight movement against his chest. The baby's tiny hand had curled around his finger, the grip surprisingly strong for something so small. That's it, Ethan, Jack encouraged. You fight. They turned onto Beacon Street, the Range Rover struggling through snowdrifts. Jack's mansion loomed ahead, dark except for the security lights. Home to just him and a staff that wouldn't arrive until tomorrow afternoon. Almost there, Jack told Dr. Martin, who had been silent, letting them focus on driving. Good. Any change in the baby's condition? He gripped my finger, still very cold but responsive. Excellent sign. The mother, semi-conscious but talking. They pulled into the gated driveway, the security system automatically recognizing the vehicle. Jack hadn't thought about what would happen next. He couldn't drive one-handed while holding the baby, and Rachel couldn't walk on her own. Sophie, I need you to be my special helper, Jack said. Can you run inside and bring blankets from the linen closet? The security code is your birthday. Sophie nodded solemnly. 41516. The moment Jack stopped the car, Sophie dashed through the snow toward the front door. Jack looked down at the tiny life pressed against his chest. Ethan's breathing seemed stronger now, his skin less blue. A miracle of human resilience. We're here, Rachel, Jack said, turning to the back seat. Help is coming. Rachel's eyes opened clearer now, but filled with sudden panic. She struggled to sit up. Where are we? Who are you? My name is Jack Foster. My daughter Sophie and I found you in the park. You and Ethan were freezing. Rachel looked around wildly, her gaze settling on her baby against Jack's chest. Give him to me, she demanded, reaching for Ethan with trembling hands. Rachel, you're still too cold to warm him properly, Jack explained, keeping his voice gentle. My doctor is on his way. He'll be here any minute. No doctors, Rachel said, her voice rising. No hospitals. They'll take him. No one is taking Ethan, Jack promised. I'm just trying to help you both. The front door flew open and Sophie appeared, arms loaded with blankets. Behind her, an older man in a rumpled suit hurried through the snow, Dr. Martin arriving faster than Jack had expected. Inside quickly, the doctor ordered. This baby needs immediate attention. Jack carefully slid out of the car, still cradling Ethan against his chest. Dr. Martin took one look at the infant and nodded approvingly. Good job with the skin contact. Let's get him inside where I can examine him properly. Rachel tried to stand, collapsing back into the seat. My baby, she pleaded. Don't take my baby. We're helping Ethan, Jack assured her. I promise you'll be with him the whole time. Dr. Martin helped Rachel from the car, supporting her weight as they made their way through the snow. Sophie ran ahead, turning on lights and spreading blankets on the living room sofa. The warmth of the house enveloped them as they entered. The massive Christmas tree in the foyer stood unlit, presents for Sophie stacked neatly beneath it. Jack had paid his assistant to handle the shopping and wrapping. Dr. Martin guided Rachel to the sofa. I need to examine both you and your son immediately. Rachel clutched at Jack's arm as he started to hand Ethan to the doctor. Don't leave him, she begged. I'll stay right here, Jack promised, surprising himself with the protective instinct that had awakened in him. He sat beside Rachel, still holding Ethan against his chest, while Dr. Martin checked the baby's vital signs. Temperature is coming up, Dr. Martin reported. 89 degrees, still hypothermic but responding well. Heartbeat is normalizing. Relief flooded Jack's body. The tiny hand still gripped his finger stronger now. And Rachel, Jack asked. Dr. Martin moved to examine the young mother. Also hypothermic but less severely. Dehydrated and malnourished. When did you last eat, Ms. Miller? Rachel looked away. 2 days ago. Mom, that's terrible, Sophie exclaimed, appearing with a cup of hot chocolate. Here, I made this for you. Rachel accepted the mug with trembling hands. Thank you, she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. Dr. Martin continued his examination, frowning when he rolled up Rachel's sleeve. These bruises, he said quietly. They're not from the cold. Jack looked at the distinct fingerprint-shaped marks on Rachel's arm. 5 purple impressions, as if someone had grabbed her with brutal force. Sophie, Jack said, keeping his voice casual, could you go to the kitchen and see if we have any soup we could heat up for Ms. Miller? Sophie nodded, understanding the adults needed privacy. Once she had left, Dr. Martin asked gently, Ms. Miller, are these bruises why you were in the park tonight? Rachel's face crumpled. She nodded almost imperceptibly. My husband, she whispered. Ex-husband, Kevin. He found us at the shelter last week. Said he'd kill us both if I didn't come home. Jack and Dr. Martin exchanged glances. The doctor's expression was grave. Did you report this to the police? Dr. Martin asked. Rachel laughed bitterly. Kevin is the police. Officer Kevin Miller, Boston PD. Jack felt Ethan stir against his chest, making small sucking motions with his mouth. He's hungry, Jack said, grateful for the change of subject. I have formula in my bag, Rachel said, then panic crossed her face. My bag, it's still at the park. It's okay, Jack assured her. We can get formula. Sophie, he called. Can you come here, please? Sophie reappeared carrying a can of chicken noodle soup. This was all I could find in the pantry. That's perfect. Listen, we need baby formula for Ethan. Can you ask Mrs. Peterson next door if she has any? Her grandchildren visit often. Sophie's face brightened at the important mission. I'll go right now. No, Jack and Rachel said simultaneously. I mean, Jack clarified, call her first. It's too dangerous in this storm. While Sophie made the call, Dr. Martin prepared an IV bag. You're severely dehydrated, Mrs. Miller. This will help. Rachel's eyes never left Ethan, who had fallen asleep against Jack's chest. Thank you, she said quietly, for everything. Most people would have just called the police. You still need a hospital, Dr. Martin said. Both of you. No hospitals, Rachel insisted. Kevin has friends everywhere. He'll find us. At least let me notify social services, Dr. Martin suggested. They can help protect you. Rachel's laugh was hollow. The last social worker said I should try to work things out with Kevin after he broke my wrist. Jack found himself cradling Ethan more protectively. You can stay here tonight, he heard himself say. Both of you. It's safer than anywhere else right now. Rachel studied him warily. Why would you do that? You don't know me. Because it's Christmas Eve, Jack said simply, and no one should be afraid for their life on Christmas Eve. Dr. Martin raised an eyebrow but didn't comment. Instead, he continued treating Rachel, setting up the IV and checking her vital signs again. Formula mission accomplished, Sophie announced, returning to the living room. Mrs. Peterson is bringing some over right now. Her daughter just had a baby too. Good job, princess, Jack said, feeling a surge of pride at his daughter's resourcefulness. A soft knock at the front door announced Mrs. Peterson's arrival. Sophie ran to answer it, returning with an elderly woman carrying a canvas bag. Jack Foster, Mrs. Peterson said, surveying the scene with raised eyebrows. This is quite a Christmas gathering. Emergency situation, Jack explained briefly. Thank you for the formula. Of course, Mrs. Peterson set down the bag. I've brought several bottles already sterilized and enough formula for a few days. Do you need anything else? Jack glanced at Rachel's soaked clothes. Perhaps some dry clothes. I'll bring some, Mrs. Peterson promised. My daughter left some things last visit. She's about your size, dear, she added to Rachel. After Mrs. Peterson left, Dr. Martin showed Rachel how to prepare the formula, despite her protest that she knew how. I was a pediatric nurse, she explained expertly, testing the temperature on her wrist. Before everything happened. Jack carefully transferred Ethan back to his mother's arms. The baby's color had improved dramatically, his cheeks now pink instead of blue. He latched onto the bottle immediately, tiny hands pressing against it. He's going to be fine, Dr. Martin assured them. Babies are remarkably resilient. Jack stepped back, suddenly aware he was still shirtless. He grabbed a blanket from the sofa and wrapped it around his shoulders. I should go, Dr. Martin said, packing his medical bag. I've done all I can here tonight, but I want to see both of them tomorrow. Jack walked him to the door. Thank you for coming so quickly. That baby would have died within the hour if you hadn't found them, Dr. Martin said quietly. You saved his life. It was Sophie who spotted them. Either way, Dr. Martin glanced back at Rachel and Ethan. Be careful, Jack. There's more to their story. I know. If her husband is indeed law enforcement, this could get complicated. Jack nodded grimly. I'm aware of the risks. Call me if anything changes with either of them. Dr. Martin opened the door, letting in a blast of cold air. And Merry Christmas, despite everything. After the doctor left, Jack returned to find Sophie sitting beside Rachel, watching Ethan eat with fascination. He's so tiny, Sophie marveled. Was I that small? Even smaller, Jack told her, memories flooding back of the day she was born. He'd been in Tokyo, closed the Nakamura deal, then flown 16 hours to make it just in time for her birth. Diana had never forgiven him for nearly missing it. Rachel finished feeding Ethan, who had fallen asleep again. Is there somewhere I can change him? She asked. I have nothing dry for him. We can find something, Sophie insisted. I still have some baby clothes in my memory box. Mom saved them. Let's get you both settled in the guest room first, Jack suggested. There's an attached bathroom where you can warm up. He led them upstairs to the east wing, Sophie skipping ahead to turn on lights. The guest suite was elegant but impersonal, decorated by an interior designer Jack had hired after the divorce. I'll find you some clothes, Jack told Rachel, and Sophie can look for something for Ethan. Thank you, Rachel said, her voice small. I don't know how I'll ever repay you. There's nothing to repay, Jack insisted. Anyone would have done the same. Rachel's sad smile suggested she knew better. No, they wouldn't have. Most people walked right past us today. Jack left them to settle in, heading to his bedroom to change his own wet clothes. The adrenaline that had carried him through the past hour was fading, leaving bone-deep exhaustion in its wake. His phone showed 3 missed calls from Diana. She would be furious that he hadn't dropped Sophie off yet. He called her back, bracing himself for the argument. Where are you? Diana demanded without preamble. It's nearly 1 in the morning. There's been an emergency, Jack explained. Sophie and I found a woman and her baby nearly frozen in the park. We brought them home. A long silence followed. You brought strangers into your house with our daughter there. They were dying, Diana. You should have called the police. The woman's husband is police. He's abusive. That's why they were out in the storm. Another silence. You're not dropping Sophie off tonight, are you? The roads are impassable now. It's safer if she stays. Diana sighed heavily. Fine, but I want her first thing tomorrow. If the road's clear, yes. Jack, Diana's voice softened slightly. Be careful, you don't know these people. I know they needed help. Always the hero, Diana said, a hint of their old bitterness creeping in. Just remember your first responsibility is to Sophie. I never forget that, Jack replied, the familiar anger rising, contrary to what you told the judge. Diana ignored the jab. Call me when you're heading over tomorrow. And Merry Christmas, I suppose. She hung up before he could respond. Jack stared at the phone, the complicated emotions of their relationship washing over him. 3 years divorced, and they still knew exactly how to wound each other. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Sophie stood in the doorway wearing her pajamas. Daddy, I found some baby clothes, she announced, holding up a tiny sleeper. And Mrs. Peterson brought clothes for Rachel, too. Good job, sweetheart. Can I sleep in your room tonight? Sophie asked. I want to be close if baby Ethan needs help again. Jack smiled, touched by her compassion. Of course you can. They walked together to the guest room where they found Rachel sitting on the bed, cradling Ethan. She had showered, her dark hair damp around her shoulders. In borrowed clothes that were slightly too large, she looked even younger and more vulnerable. We brought some things for Ethan, Sophie announced, presenting the baby clothes with pride. Thank you. Rachel accepted them with a grateful smile. You're very kind, both of you. Are you feeling better? Jack asked. Much. Rachel looked down at Ethan. He's almost back to normal. Babies regulate their temperature faster than adults. The nurse and you talking, Rachel nodded. I worked in the NICU for 5 years, before Kevin decided it was taking too much time away from him. Sophie yawned widely, reminding Jack of the late hour. Time for bed, princess. It's way past Santa's arrival time. Santa, Sophie's eyes widened. Will he know that Rachel and Ethan are here too? Will he bring them presents? I'm sure he will, Jack assured her, touched by her concern. It's okay, Rachel said quickly. We don't need anything. Everyone needs presents on Christmas, Sophie insisted. Daddy, we have to make sure there's something for them under the tree. We will, Jack promised. Now say goodnight. We all need some rest. Sophie hugged Rachel impulsively, then gently touched Ethan's head. Good night, baby Ethan. I'm glad you're not cold anymore. After tucking Sophie into his bed, Jack returned to check on Rachel one last time. She was standing by the window watching the snow fall. Ethan slept peacefully in the center of the bed, surrounded by pillows. He looks much better, Jack observed. Yes, Rachel agreed. You saved his life. I can never thank you enough for that. Thanks, Sophie. She's the one who saw you. Rachel turned to face him fully. In the soft lamplight, Jack could see the fading bruise around her left eye, carefully concealed, but visible now that her makeup had washed away. Why were you in the park? Jack asked gently. Kevin found us at the women's shelter. Rachel explained, her voice flat. I had to leave quickly. All the other shelters were full because of the storm. And the police won't help, Rachel's laugh was bitter. Kevin is a decorated officer. His father was a police captain. They close ranks around their own. There must be someone. I've tried. Rachel's voice broke. For months I've tried. The system doesn't work for people like me. Jack ran a hand through his hair, frustrated by his own helplessness. He built skyscrapers, moved millions of dollars with a signature, employed hundreds. Yet he couldn't guarantee this young mother and her baby would be safe tomorrow. Get some rest, he finally said. You're safe tonight, at least. Rachel nodded, but her expression remained doubtful. Don't call anyone, please. No police, no social services. They'll just tell Kevin where we are. I promise, Jack assured him. No calls tonight. As he turned to leave, Rachel asked, why are you really helping us? Most men in your position wouldn't risk the complications. Jack paused at the door. The question echoed in his mind. Why had he brought strangers into his home on Christmas Eve? The answer came with surprising clarity. Because 3 years ago I forgot what matters, he said quietly. And tonight my daughter reminded me. Rachel's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, she whispered. Jack nodded once, then closed the door quietly behind him. In his bedroom, Sophie was already asleep, curled around her teddy bear. Jack sat on the edge of the bed, watching her chest rise and fall with each peaceful breath. His phone buzzed with a text message. Unknown number. I know where she is. Tell Rachel she can't hide Ethan from me forever. Jack's blood ran cold. He moved to the window, scanning the snow-covered street below. No cars, no movement, just endless white in the distant sound of wind. But somewhere out there, Kevin Miller was looking for his wife and child. And somehow he already knew they were here. Jack deleted the message and turned off his phone. He would deal with that threat tomorrow. Tonight under his roof, Rachel and Ethan would sleep safely. He lowered himself onto the bed beside Sophie, not bothering to change out of his clothes. As Christmas Eve ticked over into Christmas morning, Jack Foster made a silent promise to the strangers sleeping down the hall, a promise he hadn't known he was capable of making until tonight. No one would hurt them, not while he had the power to prevent it. The storm howled outside, snow piling against windows and doors. But inside, for the first time in years, Jack's house felt like something more than an expensive showcase. It felt like a sanctuary. Morning light filtered through heavy snowfall, casting the bedroom in a pale glow. Jack awoke with a start, momentarily disoriented by Sophie's small form curled against him. The events of the previous night crashed back into his consciousness. The woman and baby in the park. The desperate race to save them. The threatening text message. He reached for his phone, powering it on with trepidation. 8 missed calls from Diana, 3 voicemails, and another text from the unknown number. Last warning, send them out or I come in. Jack's jaw tightened. He slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Sophie, and moved to the window. The storm had transformed Boston into an alien landscape of white mounds and drifts. His driveway had disappeared completely beneath at least 2 feet of snow. No plow would make it through anytime soon. The security system's tablet showed no breaches overnight, but Jack increased the sensitivity anyway. Then he called his head of security. Mr. Foster. The man sounded surprised to be hearing from his boss on Christmas morning. Reynolds, I need a team at my house immediately. Sir, the roads are impassable. The governor's declared a state of emergency. Find a way. I have reason to believe someone might attempt to break in. A pause. Is Miss Sophie with you? Yes. I'll get there myself somehow. 2 hours tops. Jack ended the call and checked on Sophie, still sleeping peacefully. Then he made his way down the hall to the guest suite. He knocked softly, then again louder, when there was no response. Silence. Heart suddenly pounding, Jack opened the door. The bed was empty, neatly made. No sign of Rachel or Ethan. His mind immediately conjured images of kidnapping of Kevin, somehow entering during the night. Rachel, he called, moving quickly to check the bathroom. Empty. He rushed downstairs, taking them 2 at a time. In the kitchen, he skidded to a halt. Rachel stood at the stove, Ethan secured to her chest in a makeshift sling crafted from a scarf. The rich aroma of coffee filled the air. You're awake, she said, offering a hesitant smile. I hope you don't mind. I wanted to make breakfast as a thank you. Relief left Jack momentarily speechless. Rachel had tied her dark hair back, her face fresher than last night, but still bearing the yellowish shadows of fading bruises. Ethan made small gurgling sounds, his tiny hands visible against his mother's borrowed sweater. I thought you'd left, Jack finally managed. Or worse. Understanding crossed Rachel's face. You got another message from him. Jack nodded. How did you know he texted last night? Because he always finds me. She turned back to the stove, flipping pancakes with practiced precision. It's why we can't stay long. I won't put your family in danger. No one's going anywhere in this storm, Jack said, moving to pour himself coffee from the freshly brewed pot. And I have security coming. Security won't stop Kevin, not when he's wearing a badge. Rachel transferred the pancakes to a plate. He'll come with backup, claiming I kidnapped Ethan or some other lie. Does he have legal custody rights? Joint custody, technically, but the judge never heard about the abuse. Rachel's voice remained steady, though her hands trembled slightly. I tried to tell them, but without evidence. The bruises aren't evidence enough. I was clumsy, according to Kevin's testimony, fell down the stairs, walked into doors. A bitter smile touched her lips. The classic excuses. Jack studied her, seeing beyond the bruises to the intelligence in her eyes, the careful way she tended to Ethan, while simultaneously managing the cooking. Not the actions of a disorganized or unstable person. You were a pediatric nurse, he said. What hospital? Boston Children's, NICU department. Jack filed away the information, already forming a plan. There are legal avenues we can pursue. I have connections. Daddy Rachel, it's Christmas. Sophie's excited voice preceded her as she bounded into the kitchen, still in her pajamas. She stopped short, eyes wide, at the sight of breakfast preparation. Are those blueberry pancakes? They are, Rachel confirmed, her demeanor immediately brightening. Merry Christmas, Sophie. Merry Christmas. Sophie skipped over to peer at Ethan. Is he feeling better? He looks pinker today. Much better, thanks to you and your dad. Sophie beamed. Can I hold him after breakfast? I'll be super careful. Of course you can, Rachel said, exchanging a glance with Jack. The doorbell rang, its chime echoing through the house. Jack tensed instinctively, moving closer to Sophie and Rachel. Stay here, he instructed, heading for the front door. The security monitor showed a familiar figure on the front steps. Diana. Her Mercedes somehow had made it through the snow-choked streets. Jack unlocked the door, bracing himself. Diana stepped in impeccably dressed, despite the weather bringing with her a gust of cold air and Chanel perfume. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled, her camel coat dusted with melting snowflakes. At 48, she retained the beauty that had first caught Jack's attention 15 years ago. Merry Christmas, she said coolly. I've come for Sophie. The roads are terrible. How did you even get here? I have a driver with a vehicle equipped for these conditions. Diana unwound her cashmere scarf. Where is she? Kitchen. Having breakfast. Diana started in that direction, then paused, her lawyer's instincts registering Jack's unusual tension. What's wrong? The situation I mentioned last night. The woman and baby. They're still here. Diana's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose. Jack, I know you meant well, but bringing strangers into your home is... Their lives were in danger, still are. Something in his tone must have conveyed the seriousness, because Diana's expression shifted from irritation to concern. Explain. Jack outlined the situation in concise terms, knowing Diana's analytical mind would process it faster that way. When he finished, her face had hardened. Abusive police officer husband, she summarized. Looking for them, potentially violent. Yes. And he knows they're here. Seems that way? Diana closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, decision had replaced concern. I'm taking Sophie home with me now. Diana. This isn't a discussion, Jack. I'm not leaving our daughter in a house that could become a crime scene. Jack couldn't argue with her maternal instinct as much as he wanted Sophie with him. At least let her eat breakfast first. They walked to the kitchen together, an uneasy truce established. Sophie looked up from her pancakes, face lighting up. Mom, Merry Christmas. Look who Daddy saved last night. Diana took in the scene with a lawyer's observational skills. Rachel at the stove, Ethan in his makeshift sling, the domesticity of the tableau. Her smile remained fixed as she kissed Sophie's forehead. Merry Christmas, sweetheart. Those pancakes look delicious. Rachel made them. She used to be a nurse for babies. Isn't that cool? Diana turned to Rachel, extending her hand. Diana Foster. Sophie's mother, Rachel Miller. Rachel wiped her hand on a towel before shaking Diana's. Thank you for not being upset about us being here. Why would I be upset about my ex-husband saving a mother and child? Diana's tone was pleasant, but Jack recognized the slight edge. Sophie, darling, we need to go soon. The roads are dreadful. Sophie's face fell. But it's Christmas morning. We didn't even open presents yet. We have presents at home too, Diana reminded her. But what about Rachel and Ethan? They need their presents. Diana's eyes flicked to Jack, a silent accusation. You've let her get attached already. Sophie, Jack intervened, your mom is right. The weather is dangerous, and it might be safer at her house right now. Sophie looked between her parents, intuiting the adult tension. Is it because of Rachel's mean husband? Is he coming here? The question hung in the air. Rachel froze by the stove, her face paling. Diana crouched to Sophie's level. What do you know about that, sweetheart? I heard Daddy on the phone last night, Sophie admitted. He said Rachel's husband is a bad policeman who hurt her. That's why they were in the snow. Diana straightened, her expression unreadable. Sophie, finish your breakfast, then we need to pack your things. But Mom, this isn't a discussion. Sophie's lower lip trembled, but she nodded, recognizing her mother's non-negotiable tone. Rachel stepped forward, still cradling Ethan. Ms. Foster, I completely understand your concerns. We'll leave as soon as possible. And go where exactly? Diana asked. Back to the park bench. Rachel had no answer. That's what I thought. Diana turned to Jack. A word in private. They stepped into the hallway, leaving Sophie with Rachel. Diana didn't waste time. This woman needs legal protection, not just a place to hide. I'm working on it, Jack said. I've called security and I'm reaching out to contacts. Security guards aren't equipped to handle a potentially violent police officer. Diana's voice was low but intense. You need someone with legal authority. The police aren't an option if her husband has department connections. Diana pursed her lips, thinking, I know someone, Judge Harriet Chen. She can issue an emergency protective order even on Christmas Day. You'd help with this? Jack couldn't keep the surprise from his voice. Contrary to what you might believe, Jack, I don't enjoy seeing women and children in danger. Diana checked her watch. I need to get Sophie home, then I'll call Harriet. Thank you, Jack said sincerely. Diana's expression softened slightly. Do you have evidence of the abuse? Just the bruises, and apparently hospital records if we can access them. That's a start, Diana hesitated. Be careful, Jack. This isn't some business deal where money can solve everything. I know that. Do you? Her gaze was penetrating. Because you have a habit of thinking your resources make you invincible. Before Jack could respond, Sophie reappeared with Rachel. Mom, can Rachel and Ethan come with us to your house? They'd be safe there too, right? Diana looked momentarily startled. Rachel immediately shook her head. That's very sweet, Sophie, but we couldn't impose like that. It's not an imposition if it keeps you safe, Sophie argued with a child's simple logic. Diana and Jack exchanged glances. A silent communication passed between them, honed by years of marriage before the divorce. Perhaps that would be best, Diana finally said. My house has a comprehensive security system and Kevin Miller likely doesn't know where I live. I couldn't ask you to take that risk, Rachel protested. You didn't ask. Sophie did. Diana's tone was final. Pack whatever you need. We leave in 15 minutes. As Diana helped Sophie gather her things, Jack pulled Rachel aside. You don't have to go if you don't want to. I think I do, Rachel said quietly. Your ex-wife is right. Sophie shouldn't be here if Kevin comes. Diana can be intense, but she's one of the best family law attorneys in Boston. If anyone can help navigate this legally, it's her. Rachel nodded, adjusting Ethan in his sling. Why is she helping us? Most women wouldn't welcome their ex-husband's rescues into their home. Jack smiled ruefully. Diana's complicated. Ruthless in court, but she has a strong moral compass. And once Sophie asked, there was no way she'd refuse. The doorbell rang again, startling them both. Jack checked the security monitor. Reynolds had arrived accompanied by 2 other security personnel. My team, Jack explained. Let me brief them. 20 minutes later, Diana's Mercedes SUV was loaded with Sophie, Rachel, Ethan, and hastily wrapped presents Jack had insisted they take. The security team had cleared a path through the snow and would follow in a separate vehicle. "I'll call you after I speak with Judge Chen," Diana told Jack as she prepared to leave. "I'll be working on getting those hospital records," Jack replied. Diana nodded, then hesitated. "Jack, this is more dangerous than your usual crusades. If he's willing to harm his own wife and child." "I know. Just be careful." She slipped into the driver's seat. Sophie waved from the back window as they pulled away, Rachel's pale face visible beside her. Jack watched until the taillights disappeared into the swirling snow. Alone in the empty house, he headed to his home office. The first call went to his company's head of legal affairs, waking the man from his Christmas morning. "Martin, I need everything you can find on Officer Kevin Miller, Boston PD." His next call was to the chief administrator of Boston Children's Hospital, a woman whose cancer ward had received significant donations from the Foster Foundation. "Elizabeth Verster, apologize for disturbing your holiday. I need a favor regarding a former employee." By noon, Jack had compiled a preliminary dossier on Kevin Miller, 32 years old, 8 years on the force, 2 commendations for bravery, 3 excessive force complaints, all dismissed. Previous marriage ended in divorce with sealed court records that Jack's team was working to access. The house phone rang, breaking his concentration. Diana's number. "Judge Chen is drafting the emergency order," she reported without preamble. "But she needs Rachel's statement and photographic evidence of the injuries." "How's she holding up?" "Scared but composed. Sophie's been helping with the baby." A pause. "She's a pediatric nurse?" "Was, at Boston Children's." "That explains her competence with Ethan." Diana lowered her voice. "Jack, her situation is worse than we thought. She told me Kevin threatened to kill Ethan if she ever left again." Jack's grip tightened on the phone. "I'm finding some concerning patterns in his background. His first wife also claimed abuse, then suddenly withdrew her statement and left town. Classic intimidation. Where are you with the hospital records?" "Should have them within the hour. They'll help establish a timeline of injuries." "Good." Diana's professional tone softened slightly. "Sophie wants to talk to you." Sophie's excited voice came through. "Daddy, I showed Rachel my room and my toys. Ethan likes my musical mobile." "That sounds wonderful, princess. When are you coming over? You have to bring the presents." Jack looked out at the still falling snow. "As soon as the roads clear a bit, sweetheart. Rachel made lunch for everyone. She's a really good cook." "I know. I had her pancakes, remember?" Sophie giggled. "Mom's being nice to her. They're talking about legal stuff now." "That's good. Your mom is trying to help." "I know. Mom helps people too, just like you do." The simple observation caught Jack off guard. In their bitter divorce, he and Diana had lost sight of what had initially drawn them together: similar values beneath vastly different approaches. After promising Sophie he'd try to come later, Jack resumed his research. The hospital records arrived via secure email, providing disturbing confirmation. Over the past year, Rachel had been treated for a broken wrist, bruised ribs, and a concussion. Each incident attributed to accidents, but the pattern was unmistakable. Jack forwarded the records to Diana, then checked in with his security team at her house. All clear so far. The doorbell rang again. Jack checked the monitor, surprised to see Robert Hayes, his CFO and business partner, standing on the steps. Hayes never made personal visits, especially not on holidays. Jack opened the door, ushering Hayes inside. The man looked distinctly uncomfortable, his usually impeccable appearance rumpled from the journey. "Robert, what brings you out in this weather?" Hayes removed his snow-covered hat. "A disturbing phone call, Jack, from Officer Kevin Miller." Jack stiffened. "What did he want? "He claims you're harboring his wife and child against court custody orders." Hayes studied Jack's expression. "Is that true?" "It's not that simple. The man is abusive. She was half frozen in the park with their baby." Hayes sighed heavily. "Jack, you know I respect you enormously, but involving yourself, and by extension our company, in a domestic dispute with a police officer. This isn't about the company. Everything you do reflects on Foster development. We're in the middle of the Henderson negotiations. If word gets out that you're accused of interfering in a custody case..." "To hell with the Henderson deal," Jack snapped. "We're talking about a woman and baby who would have died without intervention." Hayes held up his hands placatingly. I understand your intentions were good, but this Officer Miller was very convincing. He has court documents showing joint custody, obtained while hiding his abuse. That may be true, but we're not judges, Jack. Jack's temper flared. So what are you suggesting? That I should have left them to freeze or that I should turn them over to an abuser now? Of course not. Hayes looked genuinely distressed. But there are proper channels, social services, the courts. The system has already failed them, Jack cut in. Rachel tried those channels. They didn't work. Hayes was silent for a moment, weighing his words. The board meeting is in 3 days. Henderson will be there expecting answers about the East Harbor project. This situation could become a significant distraction. Are you giving me an ultimatum, Robert? Not at all. Hayes adjusted his glasses nervously. I'm merely pointing out potential consequences. Officer Miller seemed determined. He mentioned potential charges of kidnapping, interference with custody. Let him try. Jack, please, be reasonable. Your personal life has already caused company turmoil once with the divorce. The reference to his divorce struck a nerve. The board had indeed been unsettled by the public spectacle with Diana's firm representing several of their competitors afterward. This isn't about me, Jack insisted. It's about doing what's right. The right thing can be done through proper channels, Hayes persisted. Let me call in some favors. We can get social services involved, proper legal representation for Ms. Miller. Jack considered this. Diana's already working on the legal angle. Judge Chen is issuing an emergency protective order. Hayes looked relieved. That's excellent. Let the professionals handle it. You've done your part by saving them. And if the order isn't enough, if he comes after them anyway, then at least you'll have the law on your side. Hayes glanced at his watch. I should go. Clara's holding Christmas dinner for me. At the door, Hayes paused. Jack, you're my friend as well as my business partner. Just be careful not to let your hero complex cloud your judgment. Not everyone can be saved. After Hayes left, Jack stood in the foyer, troubled by the conversation. His phone buzzed with a text from Diana. Order granted. Rachel giving statement to Judge Chen's clerk now. How soon can you get the physical evidence here? Jack replied that he was gathering the materials and would head over as soon as the plow arrived for his driveway. He returned to his office, compiling the hospital records photographs of Rachel's current bruises taken by Dr. Martin last night and the threatening text messages. The house phone rang again. Unknown number. Jack hesitated, then answered. Foster residence. Mr. Foster, a man's voice professionally pleasant but with an underlying edge. This is Officer Kevin Miller. I believe you have something that belongs to me. Jack's pulse quickened, but he kept his voice steady. I don't know what you're talking about. Let's not play games. My wife and son, Rachel and Ethan Miller. They're not here, but they were all night. The pleasant veneer slipped, revealing something cold. That's kidnapping, Mr. Foster, interfering with my legal custody rights. They were suffering from hypothermia. They needed medical attention, which could have been provided at a hospital. Instead, you took them to your home. A pause. Interesting choice for a man with your reputation. The implication was clear. Jack felt anger rising but controlled it. If you have concerns, feel free to contact my attorney. Oh, I have, and the police commissioner, and several members of your company's board. Miller's voice hardened. I want them back today. That's not happening. Do you really want this fight, Mr. Foster, a decorated police officer versus a businessman with a history of putting work before family? The press will love it. Are you threatening me? I'm explaining reality. Rachel is my wife. Ethan is my son. The courts have already ruled on custody. Miller's tone became almost conversational. Did she tell you her sob story about the abuse? She's mentally unstable, Mr. Foster. Postpartum depression. Delusions. It's all documented. The hospital records tell a different story. A pause. You've accessed private medical records. That's another criminal offense to add to the list. Goodbye, Officer Miller. Wait, Miller's voice lost its false pleasantness. Tell Rachel I know she's at your ex-wife's house. Diana Foster, the hotshot attorney. Beacon Hill Townhouse. Jack's blood ran cold. You're mistaken. And my white Mercedes SUV left your house this morning. Easy to follow even in the snow. Miller chuckled. I have friends watching the house now. One word from me, and they go in. There's an emergency protective order in place. Jack bluffed, knowing the order wasn't quite finalized. Papers don't stop bullets, Mr. Foster. The line went dead. Jack immediately called Diana, hands shaking with rage and fear. He knows they're there, he said the moment she answered. Kevin Miller. He followed you from my house. Diana's sharp intake of breath was the only indication of alarm. How certain are you? He just called me, said he has people watching your house. That's concerning, but not unexpected. Diana's voice was controlled. Judge Chen's clerk just left with Rachel's statement. The order should be official within the hour. Diana, this man threatened vigilancy. He said, papers don't stop bullets. A pause. I've notified my security team. They're on high alert. I'm coming over. Jack, the roads are still treacherous. I don't care. He implied he has officers ready to enter your house. Another pause. I'll call Judge Chen directly. She can expedite the process and notify the police commissioner. Kevin Miller will be served with the order immediately. And if he ignores it, then he'll be in violation and can be arrested. Diana's voice softened slightly. Jack, I understand your concern, but rushing over here could make things worse. Jack paced his office, torn between action and prudence. Put Sophie on the phone. A moment later, Sophie's cheerful voice came through. Daddy, are you coming over soon? Soon, princess. Are you having fun? Yes, Rachel is teaching me how to hold Ethan properly. Mom took pictures of us. The normalcy of her tone reassured him somewhat. That's wonderful. Is everything quiet there? No visitors or anything unusual? Nope, just us and Mom's security guys. They're super boring, though. They just stand around and look at their phones. Jack smiled despite his worry. They're supposed to be boring. That means everything's safe. After speaking with Sophie, Jack returned to Diana. Keep her away from the windows just in case. Already done, Jack. I need to tell you something else. Diana hesitated. Rachel showed me more evidence. Photos she managed to hide from Kevin. They're disturbing. What kind of photos? Previous injuries, worse than what we've seen, and threatening notes he left her. Diana's professional demeanor slipped. Jack, this man is a monster. He systematically isolated and terrorized her. Jack thought of Rachel's quiet dignity, her care for Ethan even while freezing and starving herself. How do men like that become police officers? The same way they become CEOs or lawyers or doctors, Diana replied. They're skilled at presenting a different face to the world. The doorbell rang again. Jack checked the monitor. A plow had finally arrived for his driveway. My plow's here. I'll be there as soon as possible. Be careful, Diana warned. If Kevin Miller is having you watch too, I'll bring my security team. After ending the call, Jack gathered the evidence into his briefcase. As the plow cleared his driveway, he received a text from an unknown number, a photo of Diana's house clearly taken from across the street. Last chance. Send them out or we go in. Jack forwarded the photo to Diana, then called Reynolds. We're leaving for Beacon Hill immediately. Armed escort. Within 15 minutes, Jack was in his Range Rover, following the plow through still treacherous streets. Reynolds drove with 2 security vehicles following. Jack called Judge Chen directly explaining the escalating threats. I've signed the order, Mr. Foster, the judge assured him. It's being served to Officer Miller now, along with a temporary suspension from duty pending investigation. He's made explicit threats. He knows where they are. I've alerted the police commissioner personally. Officers not connected to Miller are being dispatched to Diana's residence. How long? 20 minutes, perhaps. The weather is complicating everything. Jack ended the call, checking his watch. They were still 10 minutes from Diana's house. He tried calling her again, but the call went straight to voicemail. Faster, he ordered Reynolds. The security chief nodded grimly, pressing harder on the accelerator. As they turned onto Diana's street, Jack's worst fears materialized. 2 police cruisers were parked haphazardly outside her house, lights flashing. The front door stood open. Stop here, Jack commanded, reaching for the door handle before they'd fully stopped. Reynolds grabbed his arm. Sir, wait for backup. We don't know what's happening. My daughter is in there. All the more reason to proceed carefully. Jack forced himself to take a deep breath. Approach from the rear, the garden entrance. They circled around to the back of the townhouse. One of Jack's security team picked the garden gate lock with practiced ease. The rear of the house appeared undisturbed, the kitchen windows glowing warmly. Jack peered through the glass. The kitchen was empty, but he could hear voices from the front of the house. Reynolds motioned for silence as they entered through the unlocked garden door. "You have no right to be here," Diana's voice sharp with controlled fury. "The protective order is in effect." "Ma'am, we have reports of an abducted child at this address." A male voice, official and detached. "We're conducting a welfare check." Jack and Reynolds moved silently down the hallway toward the voices in the living room. Jack froze at what he saw. Diana stood protectively in front of Rachel, who clutched Ethan to her chest. Sophie was behind them, eyes wide with fear. Two uniformed officers faced them, one with his hand resting meaningfully on his holstered weapon. And between them, Kevin Miller in civilian clothes, his handsome face tight with restrained anger. "There she is," Kevin said, voice dripping with false concern. "My poor confused wife. And my son. I have an emergency protective order." Rachel said, her voice surprisingly steady despite her pale face. "You can't be here, Kevin." "That order hasn't been properly served yet," one officer said. "And we have a report of potential child endangerment." "This is absurd," Diana snapped. "I'm an officer of the court. You're violating multiple protocols by being here." Kevin took a step forward. "Rachel, baby, this has gone far enough. You know you need help. The doctors explained about the postpartum psychosis." "Don't come any closer," Diana warned. "My security team has already called for backup." Kevin smiled a chilling expression. "We are the backup counselor." He turned to Rachel. "Give me Ethan. Now." Rachel clutched the baby tighter. "No." Kevin's face darkened, always making things difficult. Jack stepped into the room, Reynolds close behind him. "I think you should leave, Officer Miller." Kevin turned surprise, quickly masked by contempt. "The White Knight arrives." He gestured to the uniformed officers. "This man is interfering with police business." "What police business?" Jack challenged. "Judge Chen has issued an emergency protective order. I just spoke with her. It's in effect now." The uniformed officers exchanged uncertain glances. Kevin's jaw tightened. "Show me the order," one officer demanded. Diana stepped forward, tablet in hand. "Right here, signed 30 minutes ago." The older officer reviewed it, then looked at Kevin. "This appears legitimate, Miller." "It's a misunderstanding," Kevin insisted. "My wife is mentally unstable. She kidnapped our son." "That's a lie," Sophie suddenly burst out, stepping forward, despite Diana's attempt to keep her back. Rachel was freezing in the snow with baby Ethan. Her eye was all purple, and she had big bruises on her arms. "You're the bad one." Kevin's expression darkened. "You've got a mouthy kid there, Foster." Jack moved to Sophie, placing himself between her and Kevin. "Officers, I have extensive evidence of Officer Miller's abuse. Hospital records, photographs, witness statements." "Fabricated," Kevin snapped. "This man has been having an affair with my wife." Rachel gasped. "That's not true." "Then why were you in his house overnight? Why is he so invested in taking you from me?" Kevin's voice rose. "He's using you, Rachel, like all the others." The older officer stepped between them. "Everyone needs to calm down. Miller, based on this order, you need to leave the premises immediately." "This is bullshit," Kevin snarled, his facade crumbling. "She's my wife. He's my son. And they're under the protection of the court now," Diana stated firmly. "Leave or be arrested for violating the order." For a terrible moment, Jack thought Kevin might reach for his weapon. The man's face contorted with rage, his hand twitching at his side. Then flashing lights appeared outside and the distinctive sound of multiple police vehicles arriving. "Commissioner's Special Unit," the older officer explained. "Judge Chen must have called it in." Kevin's face paled slightly. The commissioner outranked his department connections. "This isn't over," he said, looking directly at Rachel. Then his gaze shifted to Jack. "You've made a serious mistake, Foster. People like you think money solves everything, buys you whatever you want. Not this time." The newly arrived officers entered, led by a stern-faced captain who immediately took control of the situation. Kevin and his uniformed allies were escorted out, the captain apologizing profusely to Diana and assuring them all that the protective order would be strictly enforced. When they had gone, Sophie rushed to Jack, throwing her arms around his waist. "Daddy, I was so scared. That man was so mean." Jack held her tightly, his heart still racing with adrenaline. You were very brave, princess. Too brave, maybe. Diana approached her composure slightly shaken. She refused to leave Rachel's side even when I tried to get her upstairs. Rachel sat heavily on the sofa, still clutching Ethan. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I've brought this danger to your family. No, Jack said firmly. Kevin brought this danger, not you. Diana sat beside Rachel, taking her free hand. The protective order is in place. The commissioner is personally involved now. You're safer than you were yesterday. For how long? Rachel asked. Restraining orders expire. Commissioners retire. Kevin will wait, and when everyone has forgotten, he'll come again. Jack and Diana exchanged glances, a silent understanding passing between them. Something had shifted in their relationship, a common purpose emerging from the chaos. We won't let that happen, Jack promised. We'll build a case against him, Diana added. With the evidence we have, plus your testimony, we can push for criminal charges. Permanent protection. Rachel looked between them, a fragile hope dawning in her eyes. Why would you do this for us? You don't even know us. Sophie climbed onto the sofa beside Rachel. Because that's what families do, she said with a child's simple wisdom. They help people who need helping. Outside, the snowstorm finally began to ease, late afternoon sunlight breaking through the clouds. Christmas Day was ending, but something new had begun. An unlikely alliance formed in crisis bonds forged in the face of danger. As Diana went to prepare dinner and Sophie showed Rachel where the baby supplies were kept, Jack stood at the window watching the police vehicles depart. Kevin Miller might have left the scene, but Jack harbored no illusions. The man would be back, driven by obsession and rage. The real battle was just beginning. But for the first time in years, Jack wasn't fighting alone. Whatever came next, they would face it together. For now, in this moment of fragile peace, that was enough. 3 days after Christmas, Boston began to emerge from beneath the historic snowfall. Streets were cleared, businesses reopened, and the city reclaimed its rhythm. But inside Diana Foster's Beacon Hill townhouse, the atmosphere remained tense, a fortress under invisible siege. Jack stood at the living room window, watching his security team patrol the perimeter. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, evidence of sleepless nights spent monitoring surveillance feeds and coordinating with police. The protective order against Kevin Miller had brought only partial relief. The man had disappeared after being served, neither returning to work nor his apartment. Any sign of him? Diana asked, entering with 2 coffee mugs. Jack accepted the coffee gratefully. Nothing for 48 hours. That's what worries me. Diana nodded, understanding the implications. Kevin Miller wasn't retreating. He was planning. The board meeting is today, she reminded him. Robert Hayes called twice this morning. The Henderson deal can wait. Can it? Diana raised an eyebrow. Your CFO seemed to think it's rather important. Jack sipped his coffee, the familiar tension between business obligations and personal priorities tightening his chest. 3 days ago, the Henderson acquisition had consumed his world. Now it seemed trivial compared to the safety of the people under this roof. I'll video conference in, he decided. Reynolds can drive me to the office for an hour, but I'm not staying. Sophie will be disappointed. She was looking forward to your museum day. Jack glanced toward the kitchen where Sophie sat with Rachel helping prepare breakfast. The two had become inseparable, Sophie appointing herself assistant caretaker to baby Ethan. The sight of his daughter's gentle interactions with the infant stirred something profound in Jack, pride mixed with a bittersweet recognition of her compassion. I'll make it up to her, Jack promised, once this situation is resolved. Diana studied him over her coffee mug. And when will that be exactly? Kevin Miller isn't going to simply give up and walk away. The criminal case is building. Your documentation of Rachel's injuries combined with the hospital records will take months to move through the courts, Diana interrupted, even with my connections and your resources. Rachel appeared in the doorway, Ethan sleeping peacefully against her shoulder. She had gained some color in her cheeks over the past days, the haunted look in her eyes gradually receding. But the watchful wariness remained, especially when doors opened or unfamiliar sounds echoed through the house. I heard my name, she said quietly. You're discussing the case. Just updates, Diana assured her. The prosecutor believes we have sufficient evidence for charges of domestic violence, terroristic threatening, and potentially official misconduct. But not enough to arrest him now. Not yet, Diana admitted. Without an active assault or direct violation of the protective order, they're still building the case. Rachel nodded, unsurprised by the system's methodical pace. Sophie's almost finished setting the table for breakfast. She's very excited about going to the museum with you today, she told Jack. The unspoken question hung in the air. Jack glanced at his watch, calculating hours against obligations. The board meeting shouldn't take more than 2 hours. We could go afterward. Rachel smiled, relief evident in her expression. She'll be thrilled. She's been talking about the dinosaur exhibit all morning. When Rachel returned to the kitchen, Diana fixed Jack with a penetrating look. You've gotten attached. To Sophie, I've always been attached to our daughter. Don't be obtuse. To Rachel and Ethan. Jack set down his coffee mug. They're vulnerable people in a dangerous situation. Of course I'm concerned. It's more than concern. Diana's voice remained neutral, analytical rather than accusatory. You've canceled meetings, delegated critical negotiations, slept on my sofa for 3 nights. The Jack Foster I was married to would never have put business on hold like this. The observation struck closer to truth than Jack cared to admit. People change, Diana. Indeed, a hint of approval softened her features. Sophie's noticed too. She told me yesterday that you're different now, more present, even when you're worried. Jack felt a pang of regret for all the times he hadn't been present during their marriage, the accumulated absences that eventually created an unbridgeable distance. Before he could respond, Sophie bounded into the room. Breakfast is ready, she announced. Rachel made French toast because it's Wednesday, and Wednesday was boring without special breakfast. That's very thoughtful of her, Diana said, exchanging a glance with Jack. They gathered around Diana's elegant dining table, an unlikely family unit formed by crisis. Sophie chattered excitedly about the dinosaur exhibit, while Rachel gently rocked Ethan. For a moment, the danger seemed distant, held at bay by domestic tranquility. Jack's phone vibrated. Hayes again. With an apologetic smile, he excused himself to take the call in the hallway. Jack, where are you? Hayes demanded without preamble. The Henderson team is already here. They're expecting a full presentation. I told you I'd be video conferencing in. That's not acceptable. They flew in from Chicago specifically to meet with you. Hayes's voice tightened with stress. The rumors are already circulating, Jack, about you harboring a fugitive. Rachel Miller is not a fugitive. Her husband is telling a different story. He's contacted shareholders directly. Jack's grip on the phone tightened. What exactly is he saying? That you're having an affair with his emotionally disturbed wife, that you helped her kidnap their child, that you're using company resources to hide them. None of that is true. Truth isn't the point. Perception is. Hayes sighed heavily. The Henderson family is old-fashioned, Jack. They care about reputation and moral standing. If they pull out over this scandal, we lose the East Harbor development completely. Jack glanced back toward the dining room where Sophie was demonstrating her dinosaur impression, drawing genuine laughter from Rachel. The sound of her happiness tugged at him, a counterweight to the millions at stake in the Henderson deal. Give me 2 hours, Jack finally said. I'll be there for the final negotiations. But I'm bringing security, and I'm not staying. It's something, Hayes conceded. What should I tell them about the rumors? The truth. That I encountered a domestic violence victim and her infant during a blizzard and assisted them in obtaining legal protection. Jack's voice hardened. And if the Henderson family finds moral fault with that, they're not people we want to do business with anyway. He ended the call and rejoined the others at the table. Sophie immediately bombarded him with questions about which dinosaur he thought was scariest, blissfully unaware of the adult complexities swirling around her. Diana caught his eye, reading his expression with the insight of their years together. Board meeting, she asked. I need to go in. 2 hours maximum. He turned to Sophie. Then we'll hit the museum, princess. I promise. Yes, Sophie pumped her fist triumphantly. Can Rachel and Ethan come too? They've never seen the giant T-Rex skeleton. Jack hesitated, security considerations immediately flooding his mind. Rachel shook her head slightly. Ethan and I should stay here where it's safe, she said gently. But maybe you can take pictures to show us. Sophie frowned, processing this disappointment. I guess that makes sense, but you're missing the best dinosaurs ever. Tell you what, Diana interjected smoothly. While they're at the museum, you and I can work on your case file, Rachel. The prosecutor wants more detailed documentation of the timeline. The practiced way Diana diverted Sophie's disappointment reminded Jack of her skill as a mother, how she had often compensated for his absences with thoughtful alternatives. Another regret to add to his growing collection. An hour later, Jack prepared to leave for the office, Reynolds waiting by the car. He knelt to hug Sophie goodbye, inhaling the strawberry scent of her shampoo. 2 hours, he promised. Then dinosaurs. The biggest ones first, Sophie insisted. Absolutely. As he stood, Rachel approached Ethan, sleeping in her arms. Thank you, she said quietly, for everything you have done for us. It's not over yet, Jack reminded her. Stay alert until I'm back. Always. A sad smile touched her lips. It becomes second nature after a while. Watching doors, counting exits, listening for footsteps. The casual description of her hypervigilance struck Jack profoundly. He thought of his own daughter, how devastating it would be if she ever had to live with such constant fear. It won't always be like this, he assured Rachel. We're building a case that will keep him away permanently. Rachel nodded, though doubt lingered in her eyes. I believe you're trying. That means more than you know. Jack resisted the unexpected urge to touch her shoulder to offer physical reassurance. Instead, he nodded to Diana, who stood watching their interaction with inscrutable eyes. Reynolds and 2 others will remain here, he told her. The alarm system is set to direct alert to the police commissioner's office. We'll be fine at the end, Diana said. Go save your development deal. The drive to Foster Development headquarters took place in tense silence, Reynolds constantly scanning for surveillance or pursuit. The gleaming 60-story tower rose above the Boston skyline, a monument to Jack's business acumen and ambition. Today it felt like a distraction rather than an achievement. In the executive conference room, Robert Hayes visibly sagged with relief when Jack entered. Around the mahogany table sat the Henderson family representatives, along with Foster Development's executive team and attorneys. Mr. Foster, George Henderson Sr., rose to shake his hand. We were beginning to think you had more pressing matters than our $300 million development. The subtle jab didn't escape Jack. He smiled professionally. Some things do take precedence, Mr. Henderson, even over excellent business opportunities. The meeting proceeded with presentations and negotiations. Jack functioning on autopilot, his mind partially occupied with thoughts of Sophie Rachel and the threat that Kevin Miller represented. He caught Hayes watching him with concern during momentary lulls, noting his frequent glances at his phone. Finally, Henderson Sr. addressed the elephant in the room. Mr. Foster, before we sign anything, I must ask about these concerning rumors. Something about a domestic situation. The conference room fell silent. Jack set down his pen and looked directly at the older man. 3 nights ago, my daughter and I found a young mother and her infant suffering from hypothermia in the park. We discovered she was fleeing an abusive husband. I helped her obtain legal protection. Jack's voice remained measured but firm. That's the extent of the domestic situation. Henderson studied him. The husband is a police officer, I understand. Yes, currently under investigation for domestic violence and misconduct. And there's no personal involvement on your part? Jack felt a flash of anger, but controlled it. My only personal involvement is ensuring that a woman and baby don't return to an abusive situation. If that gives you pause about doing business with Foster Development, I understand. The challenge hung in the air. Henderson exchanged glances with his son and their attorneys. Finally, he nodded slowly. My late wife volunteered at a women's shelter for 20 years, he said unexpectedly. She would have approved of your actions. He extended his hand. Let's sign the papers, Mr. Foster. Relief spread through the room as agreements were passed and signatures exchanged. Jack felt Hayes' approving glance but took no satisfaction from the victory. His thoughts had already returned to Beacon Hill. The meeting concluded precisely at the 2-hour mark. Jack was gathering his documents when his phone vibrated with an incoming call from Diana. His pulse quickened. Excuse me, he said, stepping away from the table. Diana, is everything all right? Jack, her voice was tight with controlled fear. Kevin Miller just called the house. Somehow he got my private number. Jack's blood ran cold. What did he say? That he's coming for what's his, that no piece of paper will stop him. Diana's voice dropped. He said he knows Sophie's going to the museum with you today. That's not public information, Jack. He's been watching us. Jack signaled urgently to Reynolds, already moving toward the door. Where's Sophie now? With me, Rachel and Ethan too. We're in the panic room. Years ago, Diana had installed a secure room in her townhouse, concerned about potential threats related to her high-profile cases. Jack had thought it excessive at the time. Stay there. Don't open for anyone but me or the police. I'm on my way. He ended the call turning to Hayes, who had followed him with a concerned expression. I have to go. Family emergency. The deal is signed. Handle the rest. Jack was already striding toward the elevator, Reynolds a step behind. And Robert, I'll need an indefinite leave of absence. In the car, Jack called the police commissioner, directly explaining the situation. Additional officers were dispatched to Diana's townhouse with instructions to approach cautiously, aware that Kevin Miller might be watching. How did he get Diana's private number? Jack asked Reynolds as they sped through traffic. It's unlisted secure. Police resources, Reynolds said grimly. He's using department access. The question is whether he's acting alone. The implications were chilling. If Miller had fellow officers helping him, the threat expanded exponentially. As they approached Diana Street, Reynolds slowed, scanning methodically. No visible surveillance, no unfamiliar vehicles. Jack's phone rang. Diana again. We're almost there, he answered immediately. Jack listened carefully. Diana's voice was eerily calm. Kevin Miller is inside the house. The world seemed to stop. What? How? The silent alarm triggered 5 minutes ago. Security cameras show him entering through the garden door. He had a key, Jack. He must have taken it from Rachel's belongings at some point. Where are you exactly? Master bedroom, panic room. Sophie, Rachel, Ethan, and me. He can't get in here, but he's in the house. Police are en route. We're 2 minutes out. Don't open that door for anyone but me. Reynolds accelerated, face grim. When they arrived, 3 police cruisers had already surrounded the townhouse, officers positioned strategically with weapons drawn. The captain approached as Jack exited the vehicle. Miller is confirmed inside, he reported tersely. No response to negotiation attempts. We're treating it as a barricade situation with potential hostages, though we know your family is secure in the panic room. He knows they're in there, Jack said. That's why he came. We have thermal imaging showing just one heat signature moving through the house. 2nd floor currently. Jack's phone vibrated with a text. Unknown number. Tell them to back off or I burn this place down with everyone in it. He showed the message to the captain, who immediately spoke into his radio, ordering officers to maintain position but not advance. He's desperate, the captain said. Dangerous combination with his training. Let me go in, Jack said. He wants to talk to me. I can distract him while you position snipers. Absolutely not, the captain replied. This is a police matter now. That man is threatening my daughter. And we have tactical teams who handle these situations, Mr. Foster. Another text arrived. 2 minutes or I start the fire. Your choice, Foster. Jack made his decision in an instant, breaking away from the captain and sprinting toward the house before anyone could stop him. He heard shouts behind him, but didn't slow. The garden gate was unlocked. He slipped through, approaching the house from the rear where Miller had entered. The garden door stood ajar. Jack paused, heart pounding, then entered cautiously. The kitchen was empty, but he could hear movement upstairs. His phone vibrated again. Smart man. Come upstairs. Lone. Or they'd burn. Jack texted Diana quickly. I'm inside. Stay locked down. Police surrounding house. Miller wants me upstairs. Her response was immediate. Don't. It's a trap. Of course it was a trap. But with Sophie, Diana, Rachel, and Ethan secured in the panic room, the only person at risk was Jack himself, an acceptable gamble. He moved silently through the house, years of martial arts training guiding his footsteps. At the bottom of the stairs, he called out, Miller, I'm here. Let's talk. 3rd door on the right, came the response. Come in slowly. Jack ascended the stairs, adrenaline sharpening his senses. The 3rd door led to Diana's home office. He pushed it open carefully. Kevin Miller sat behind Diana's desk, remarkably composed in his police uniform. More disturbing than his calm demeanor was the pistol resting casually beside his hand. On the desk lay what appeared to be a makeshift incendiary device. Close the door, Miller instructed. Jack complied, assessing the man who had caused so much fear. Handsome in a conventional way with short cropped hair and the physique of someone who maintained the appearance of fitness. But his eyes revealed something else, a coldness that raised the hairs on Jack's neck. You've created quite a situation, Foster, Miller said conversationally, interfering in a family matter, turning my wife against me, using your money and influence to manipulate the system. Is that what you think happened? Jack remained by the door, measuring the distance between them. Rachel was half dead in a snowstorm with your infant son. That's not a family matter. That's attempted murder. Miller smiled thinly. Dramatic interpretation. She left during an argument, made a poor decision during an emotional episode. She has a history of instability. She has a history of injuries inflicted by you, Jack countered. Well documented now. Circumstantial, her word against mine. Miller gestured to the chair opposite the desk. Sit down, we're going to negotiate. Jack remained standing. There's nothing to negotiate. Rachel has legal protection. You're violating a court order right now. Court orders, Miller snorted derisively. Do you know how many protection orders I've seen violated? How many women end up dead despite their precious legal papers? The system doesn't work, Foster. Then why are you here if you don't respect the system? Why break into a house surrounded by police? Miller's facade cracked slightly, revealing the rage beneath. Because you took what's mine. You think your money gives you the right to anything you want. My family, my life. He leaned forward. Do you know what happens to a cop who loses his job over domestic violence allegations? I lose everything. My career, my pension, my reputation. You should have thought of that before you started beating your wife. Miller's hand moved to the gun. Careful, Foster. You're not in your boardroom now. Jack kept his voice steady. What exactly do you want? Simple. You're going to call Rachel. Tell her to come out of that panic room with my son. We're going to walk out of here together, and you're going to inform the police and the courts that there was a misunderstanding. Charges dropped. Order rescinded. And if I refuse, Miller picked up the incendiary device. Then I trigger this, and while it might not reach your daughter in that fancy panic room, the smoke certainly will. How long do you think the oxygen lasts in there if the house is burning around it? Jack's mind raced, calculating options. The panic room had approximately 6 hours of air in sealed conditions, less if smoke contaminated the ventilation. But Miller was missing a critical piece of information. The panic room had a secondary exit, a tunnel that led to the adjacent property installed at Diana's insistence during renovations. They weren't truly trapped. Rachel won't come out, Jack said, playing for time. Not even if I ask her to. She will if her precious Ethan starts crying for air. Miller's voice hardened. Make the call, Foster. Jack slowly removed his phone. Instead of calling Diana, he pressed the emergency button. Reynolds had installed a silent alert that would transmit his exact location to security and police. I need to unlock it first, he said, stalling. His gaze flickered to the window behind Miller. Through the partially open curtains, he glimpsed movement, a tactical officer positioning on the adjacent rooftop. Miller seemed to sense his distraction. He stood abruptly, gun now in hand. Enough games. Call her now or I start the fire. Jack raised the phone as if complying, then deliberately dropped it. As he bent to retrieve it, the office door burst open behind him. Miller swung the gun toward the noise, and Jack lunged across the desk, tackling him with full force. They crashed to the floor, Jack gripping Miller's wrist, forcing the gun hand away. Miller was strong, his police training evident, as he fought back with practiced moves. The gun discharged, bullet embedding in the ceiling. Jack maintained his grip on Miller's wrist, slamming it repeatedly against the hardwood floor until the weapon clattered free. Tactical officers poured through the door and window, simultaneously securing Miller in seconds. Jack rolled away, breathing heavily, tasting blood from a split lip. Clear, shouted the lead officer. Suspect in custody. Explosive device needs disposal. Jack was helped to his feet by Reynolds, who had entered with the tactical team. You ignored direct orders to stay outside, the security chief said, though his tone held a hint of respect. Couldn't resist playing hero, Jack replied, wincing as he touched his bloodied lip. Miller was handcuffed and dragged upright, his composure completely shattered. This isn't over, he shouted as officers led him away. You can't take my son, he's mine. Jack watched him being escorted out, feeling no satisfaction, only profound relief that the immediate threat had been neutralized. The bomb squad entered to deal with the incendiary device, evacuating that section of the house until it was secured. 20 minutes later, with Miller safely in police custody and the device disarmed, Jack stood outside the panic room door, speaking through the intercom. Diana, it's over. Miller's in custody. You can come out now. The door unlocked with a heavy mechanical thunk. Diana appeared first, her composure remarkable given the circumstances. Sophie rushed past her, throwing herself into Jack's arms with such force that he grunted in pain despite his joy. "Daddy, your face is bleeding," she exclaimed, touching his cheek with worried fingers. "Just a scratch, princess. Nothing serious." Jack held her tightly, the reality of what might have happened hitting him fully for the first time. Rachel emerged last. Ethan clutched protectively against her chest. Her face was pale but resolute, eyes moving quickly around the room as if still expecting danger. "He's gone," she asked, her voice barely audible. "In police custody," Jack confirmed. "Multiple charges now. Breaking and entering attempted arson assault with a deadly weapon violating the protection order. He won't be getting out anytime soon." Rachel's composure finally cracked. She sank onto the nearest chair, tears streaming silently down her face as she rocked Ethan. "It's really over." Diana sat beside her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "The criminal case is solid now. He's facing years in prison, not months." Sophie wiggled out of Jack's arms and went to Rachel, wrapping her small arms around both mother and baby. "See, Daddy fixed it. He always fixes everything." The simple faith in her father's abilities brought a lump to Jack's throat. How many times had he failed to live up to that faith during his marriage? How many problems had he been too busy to fix while building his empire? Later, after police statements had been given and Rachel and Ethan had been settled in a more secure room, Jack found himself alone with Diana in the kitchen. She handed him an ice pack for his swollen lip. "That was simultaneously the bravest and stupidest thing I've ever seen you do," she said, her tone making it unclear whether she was complimenting or criticizing him. "I couldn't risk him starting a fire. Even with the panic room, the danger was too great." "I know," Diana sighed, leaning against the counter. "That's why I can't even be properly angry with you." She studied him thoughtfully. "You've changed, Jack. People keep saying that. Because it's true. The Jack Foster I was married to would have delegated the danger to security personnel. He wouldn't have put himself physically at risk." Jack applied the ice pack, considering her words. "Maybe I'm finally learning what's actually valuable." Diana smiled sadly. "Only took you losing a family to figure it out." The observation stung, but Jack couldn't deny its accuracy. "I'm sorry, Diana, for all of it. The missed dinners, the canceled vacations, the constant calls and emails. Ancient history." She waved away the apology, but her eyes reflected recognition of its significance. "What matters now is that Sophie has the father she deserves. And Rachel and Ethan. What happens to them?" Diana's expression turned thoughtful. "That depends partly on you, doesn't it?" "What do you mean?" "I've seen how you look at them, Jack. The protective instinct goes beyond basic human decency." Jack started to object, but Diana raised a hand to stop him. "I'm not accusing you of anything inappropriate. I'm observing that you've connected with them in a way I haven't seen since—" She hesitated. "Since Sophie was born." The comparison resonated uncomfortably. Jack had indeed felt something profound awakening in him, a sense of purpose and connection that had been dormant during years of single-minded career focus. "They need stability now," he said carefully. "Safety, security, a chance to rebuild, which you're perfectly positioned to provide." Diana's tone remained neutral, analytical, rather than judgmental. "Your resources, your influence. The question is whether that involvement comes with expectations." "Of course not," Jack said sharply. "I'm helping because it's the right thing to do." Diana smiled slightly. "Good answer, because Rachel isn't ready for anything beyond safety and friendship. May not be for a very long time, if ever." "I know that," Jack insisted, though the clarification made him uncomfortably aware of undefined emotions he'd been avoiding examining. Their conversation was interrupted by Sophie's appearance in the doorway. "Daddy, Rachel's asking if we can still go see the dinosaurs tomorrow instead." Jack smiled, grateful for the interruption. "Absolutely. Double dinosaur day to make up for today." "Yeah," Sophie pumped her fist triumphantly, then grew serious. "Rachel says we should thank you for saving everyone. She called you a hero like in my books." She looked at him with pure adoration. "Are you really a hero, Daddy?" Jack crouched to her level, ignoring the pain from his bruised ribs. No, princess. I just did what anyone would do to protect their family. But Rachel and Ethan aren't really our family, Sophie pointed out with a child's literal thinking. Not like Mom is. Diana and Jack exchanged glances over Sophie's head. Sometimes, sweetheart, Diana said gently, family is about who we choose to protect and care for, not just who we're related to. Sophie considered this profound concept. So we chose Rachel and Ethan to be our family, even though they didn't have anywhere to live. Something like that, Jack agreed, at least for now. Good, Ophi declared with finality, because Ethan needs a daddy, and his real daddy is a bad man who has to go to jail. With that simple assessment, she skipped back out of the kitchen, leaving the adults in thoughtful silence. Out of the mouths of babes, Diana murmured. Jack stared after his daughter, her innocent observation echoing in his mind. He had never considered the full implications of his intervention, not just saving lives in an emergency, but potentially altering the course of those lives permanently. What happens now? He asked quietly. Diana pushed away from the counter. We continue building the criminal case. Rachel testifies. Miller faces consequences. Life gradually finds a new normal. And where do Rachel and Ethan fit in that normal? That's largely up to them, Diana said, and partially up to you. How involved you want to remain. Jack thought of Rachel's quiet dignity, her fierce protection of Ethan despite her own fear. He thought of the tiny hand that had gripped his finger that first night, the implicit trust of a child who knew nothing of the dangers surrounding him. I want to help them rebuild, he said with certainty, however they need for as long as they need. Diana studied him with the perceptive gaze that had made her formidable in the courtroom. Then be prepared for the journey, Jack. Healing from abuse isn't linear or quick. There will be setbacks, trauma responses, trust issues. I understand. Do you, Her expression softened. Just remember that real heroism isn't in the dramatic rescue. It's in the daily commitment afterward when the adrenaline fades and the hard work begins. Jack nodded, absorbing the wisdom in her words. The past 4 days had awakened something dormant within him, not just compassion for Rachel and Ethan, but a recognition of what truly mattered. The Henderson deal, the Foster development empire, the accolades and achievements all seemed hollow compared to the simple triumph of a mother and child sleeping safely tonight. 1 year later, Jack stood in the doorway of his renovated garden house, watching Rachel help Ethan take wobbly steps across the lawn. The boy's delighted giggles filled the air as Sophie encouraged him from a few feet away, arms outstretched to catch him. Almost there, Ethan. You can do it, Sophie called now, 7 and thoroughly devoted to her role as honorary big sister. Rachel glanced up, catching Jack's eye with a smile that had grown more relaxed over the months. The haunted look had faded, though certain sounds, a door closing too loudly, a car backfiring, could still trigger momentary panic. Kevin Miller had been sentenced to 12 years for his crimes, his police certification permanently revoked. The trial had been difficult, Rachel's testimony painful to witness, but the outcome had brought a measure of justice and security. Diana approached carrying a tray of lemonade for the garden party, celebrating Ethan's first birthday. Her relationship with Jack had evolved into something neither had expected, a genuine friendship and co-parenting partnership that transcended their failed marriage. They look happy, she observed, nodding toward Rachel and the children. They are, Jack agreed. Most days. And you Foster development stock hit a record high last quarter despite your reduced role. Jack smiled. His decision to step back from daily operations, promoting Hayes to CEO while remaining chairman, had raised eyebrows in the business community. But the past year had taught him that delegation didn't mean failure, and success couldn't be measured solely in stock prices. I'm exactly where I need to be, he said simply. Diana nodded in understanding. Sophie told me she has 2 homes now, one with me, one with you, and that she likes having a bigger family even if it's complicated. Jack watched as Ethan finally reached Sophie, collapsing into her arms with triumphant laughter. Rachel applauded, her face alight with joy. The sight filled Jack with a contentment he had never found in boardrooms or business victories. Complicated is underrated, he said quietly. Diana raised her glass in silent agreement. Together they moved toward the celebration, toward the unlikely family that had formed from a moment of crisis on a snowy Christmas Eve. The second chance none of them had expected, but all had embraced. For Jack Foster, once defined solely by corporate achievements, it was the most meaningful development of his life, becoming a second father not through obligation or biology, but through choice, commitment, and love.